Welcome to Green Card Guys TV. I'm your host, John Ting. I practice immigration law in the United States, helping you secure your legal status. And yes, we have a physical office in Houston, Texas. Today, we have a special guest, one of our premier associates, Ariana Fuentes. Welcome to the show.
Hi.
Thank you for joining us. I know you're busy with our clients' cases and conducting quality control. And there's sometimes where we receive requests for evidence. So we're going to dive in today, and Ariana, you and I are going to share about with the audience about essentially, why it's best to have an attorney from start to finish. And actually, you shared one of the recent Supreme Court cases, and I'll share it briefly with the audience here. Befora versus Mayorkas. Ariana, can you share a little bit about this case?
Yes, so this is a case that the Supreme Court just put out. It was put out a couple days ago on December 10th. And so basically the quick facts of the case are that there was a marriage petition on behalf of this US citizen for their spouse. USCIS actually approved the petition for a green card initially, but then they sent them what's a notice of intent to revoke, which basically means that they were going to take the status away from them. And so there's kind of a lot of facts and inconsistencies, but like the biggest piece of evidence that USCIS has is that the petitioner's ex-wife kind of alerted them to the fraudulent marriage, saying that they had paid money for this green card transaction, which is not allowed. And so basically USCIS wanted to take that green card away. And so they issued the notice of intent to revoke. The US citizen actually denied all of this. They said it wasn't a fraudulent marriage, that they were actually married. And so they kept appealing and taking it up all the way up to the Supreme Court, who issued their decision. And so those are the basic facts of the case, but the holding, I think, is the most important thing. And so basically what the Supreme Court found is that they do not have review over USCIS's decision to revoke or to not give a visa, that is solely to the discretion of USCIS. And this was actually not even a partisan ruling. This was a unanimous ruling. So all of the Supreme Court judges agreed with this holding.
Thank you so much for giving us the overview there, Ariana. I did read above here that it said 2 years later, USCIS sent them a notice of intent to revoke. If I'm trying to be like an investigator type, private investigator, I don't like to assume things, but if the U.S. citizen said that she didn't provide that evidence, she had no opportunity to retract that statement of, oh, they paid me, he paid me this amount. Who knows? Maybe it could have been a relative, could have been a little jealous. You never know about these things. So try not to be biased here, folks, but it's always better to have an attorney from start to finish, because if you had prepared your case, I mean, we don't know this case. We only know it at this level where it went to the Supreme Court. We don't know the facts. We don't know the evidence. But generally speaking, if you have the proper, relevant, credible evidence at the time that you file to USCIS, likely with the help with a legal team like ours, Green Card Guys, then you're less likely to have these random jealous relatives to send in a letter to try to be savvy and ruin your marriage, unfortunately. Or maybe it's not relative, maybe it's a friend. I'm going to stop the speculation there because, yeah, it's unlikely that the U.S. citizen actually did this. The fact that this case went all the way up to the Supreme Court.
Yeah, definitely. It's really interesting because I think a lot of people had the assumption of like, even if USCIS says no, even if they try to take it away, like the courts will be there and available to stop them, which is not the case anymore after this case, especially now that the upcoming administration might not be so friendly to people petitioning for visas, people petitioning for green cards. They now basically have the last say. The Supreme Court held that they can revoke the approval of any petition if they find good and sufficient cause, which in this case was, I think the ex-wife was the one who said this stuff, which, like you said, that can definitely be a bias. Like if if you're not friendly terms with your ex and they're married to someone else, that could definitely be a reasoning. But who knows in this case? But that's the big takeaway, is that USCIS now has that final say, even if they just have this one piece of evidence. Like that can be considered good enough cause for them to take it away or to deny it in the first place.
Exactly. So a quick historical lesson from, I believe, earlier this year. There's another Supreme Court case, Bright versus Loper, that changed the standard of review in terms of the giving deference to USCIS or any other agency. And so that actually reduced that to I guess you could say, like a lower standard. Um, but that was earlier this year. And this case that Ariana shared with our legal team was decided December 10th, just 3 days ago. So this is pretty quick news, Ariana. Thank you so much for sharing this, so we could share this with the audience, real time as possible for y'all. So even with that happening, somewhere in here, it does clarify that USCIS, the agency, has is a discretionary application. So again, they're reviewing different types of evidence, documentary, like actual documents that you provide initial filing. The second type of evidence is your testimonial evidence when you're at the interview. I know a lot of y'all have been very fortunate and had your interview waived, but in reality, that's one of the ways for the USCIS officer to truly understand if you're in a genuine, bona fide marriage. So another reason to have an attorney on your side, with you all the way to the end. Additional thoughts about this sham marriage situation?
Yeah, like you said, I think it's just important to highlight like what good due diligence review of all of your documents and your forms before you even send everything. There's lots of lists out there. USCIS provides some examples of evidence, but it's hard to know, unlike attorneys who we do this almost every single day. We know what they like, we know what they don't like, we know what they want things to look like. We know how things should be set up in order for them to read it efficiently and clearly. And so even if you think like I'm sending them so much information, it could still be information that they are not happy with or that they're not used to seeing. So it's super important to have someone who knows, like an immigration attorney, look all of your documents, all of your forms before you send it, to avoid these types of issues, either a denial or even a revocation down the line.
Absolutely. Thanks for mentioning that. And then thinking like an investigator again. And I see here, I mentioned it said 2 years later after it was approved, then notice of intent to revoke. So that makes me think like this is a consular processing case. And then because there's so much, I guess you could say, delayed time between petition approved until scheduling of the interview, that's so much time had passed waiting for the actual interview that unfortunately someone got in there and gave a quote unquote hot tip, even if it was not, if it was false. So it's very unfortunate that it happened for this couple. But again, the best way to is to make sure you have a strong clad package of evidence, so there's no way that significantly reduce the possibility that an agency can change their prior decision. So what we do here at Green Card Guys is also try our best to help you prevent requests for evidence, even to the extent that we have to think a little bit more outside the box. And one of those situations is, I've been getting a lot of questions related to what if like we live in a different state? What if we live in a different city? And we've had plenty of clients actually in that kind of scenario. And it's really about, of course, number one, always telling the truth. But I know some of y'all are a little bit concerned, like, well, how do we tell the truth? Which is, I know, a little strange to say that out loud, but that's part of our service. We help you with how to tell the truth in that sense. What do you think about that, Ariana?
For sure. I've had a lot of clients that have those exact same scenarios. So whether it be for school, for work, for whatever reason, there's many reasons that people aren't able to live together. For USCIS, that's obviously not ideal. That's always a big red flag for them. Like, you don't live together, you're supposed to be married, what's going on? But there's definitely ways to explain that to them and to present it to them in a way that they're not doubtful. It doesn't make you doubtful of the marriage, and that they understand, like, people go through different circumstances in life. I've had people who, they're taking care of an elderly or sick parent. They're doing their master's degree somewhere else. They're having a job where they have to be in another state a lot. So as long as we're able to explain that in the best way, USCIS should have no problem with that approval. We've gotten many of them.
That's great, Ariana. And I was just thinking, there are other scenario where some people get a little mindset block in that sense is that, we have some clients where the partners are a little hesitant because I think, oh, on our checklist at the bottom where it says if applicable, if you could get it, great. If not, it's okay. And that one's about, letters from your friends or family. They're like, that would be nice, but not necessary. Okay, we've had plenty of cases approved without them. And I mentioned that with y'all because you might read that in the USCIS instructions as well and think like, oh, I need that. But you're also thinking like, oh shoot, that stinks because like my in-laws don't like me or her in-law, vice versa. And it's okay. I've even had friends attend their wedding. They're like, yo, John, and I help them with the case, right? Get their legal status. I'm like, yo, John, don't tell our other friends that we're getting married before the actual ceremony. I was like, cool. We'll keep it confidential, of course. So I know it seems weird, but hey, or if like your family members like, oh, why are you marrying this person? Like, this is your life. It's strange for me to say that, but now that I'm a parent, it's kind of weird for me to say that. But this is your life. Do what you need to do, right? But you might not want to tell if you got some jealous friends and family members. Yeah, you might have to figure that out because you don't want this situation like this couple that their case went to the Supreme Court.
Yes, definitely. And make sure you read the letters. I've had to reject some letters that were, like you said, people who weren't supportive, people who weren't happy. They're still willing to write one, but we like always want to present the best information. So sometimes it's good to edit stuff out. Just as important as putting stuff in and knowing what to include, it's to know what to leave out, because some things are just going to raise more flags.
That's a good point. If y'all are busy, you're like, okay, I'm just going to forward it straight to the attorney. You may not have read it and you just assumed that it was good to go. Yeah, good point, Ariana. So, hey, that's why we conduct quality control, our quality checks. So, thanks for mentioning that, Ariana. Well, there's so much to share with y'all, and I think that will just wrap up for today. We'll just thank you so much for your time. I know right before the holidays, and we're just trying to wrap up some cases. Thanks, Ariana.
Of course. Thank you. Bye-bye.